recording. What's up, horror fans? Pete here from the Lassercast. For me and my good friend Danny, Dr. ZSG, God, Torkel, discuss horror movies and streaming shows. I'm sure Danny would much rather be talking to me about Predator Badlands, but I guess, Danny, you're just going to have to get thick nerd today. So, you ready for Talamasca episodes 2 and 3, our review?
Yeah, I absolutely would love to be talking about Predator Badlands, which uh, eh, I'm still shocked at how I felt about it. And I can't wait for Brian to see it so that we could do our uh, cross channel double review. We're
Yeah.
going to be doing a review for the Lasercast and for uh, Comic Books Transformed. If you guys want to know my quick thoughts, I did post a 60-second review, short review, spoiler free, in on the Lasercast channel. But yeah, Talamasca episodes 2 and 3. Um, I liked episodes 2 and 3 together. I think they put together a good mystery. I liked the story with Kevis, the witch.
Yeah.
I thought and the I like that whole aspect of it, and I'm a sucker for any piece of like fiction where the good guy or the protagonist ends up hooking up with like the bad guy to like and I you have him up in the background, William Fichtner. I think 3 episodes in, and episode 4 just dropped, and I have it on my DVR, and I'm probably going to end up watching it. If not tonight, maybe tomorrow. I'm off from work tomorrow because New York City respects its veterans, and we have off for Veterans Day.
Right.
Uh, I'll probably be watching episode 4 tomorrow.
Yeah.
But I like the direction of where um, Guy and Jasper as a duo kind of linking up, not having any faith. I think what I like about this so much, and I think you might agree with me when I say this,
Yeah.
I don't know if the show has done a really good job so far of establishing the Talamasca. The name of the show is Talamasca. I don't think the show has really done a very good job of establishing who they are, what they do, what their role is. It's kind of just like, oh, remember we name dropped them in that Much Better show, Interview with the Vampire, a couple times.
Right,
So
right.
now we're going to give you all this like deep lore. And I think because I have no connection to the Talamasca, I'm just instinctively more interested in all the other characters, whether that was Jason Schwartzman in episode 1 or most definitely William Fichtner as Jasper in these 2 episodes. In episode 2, I was interested in Kevis, this like really cute witch. We find out that she was a witch who picks up Guy at a bar. And I just feel like I'm much more interested in all of these other characters and all of these other things that are going on rather than like watching guys stand outside of a weird strip club looking for exes on a phone booth, which I kind of feel is like for this like secret uh millennia old organization
Right.
that is supposed to be watching out for these like, for vampires and all of these other, mythical beings. I kind of find them weirdly low tech and weirdly like like the whole opening of the episode was like their libraries burned down and they're looking for it almost feels like they're looking for this MacGuffin, the 752, right? That's what it's called, the 75. Yeah.
Yeah.
And And it just kind of feels very MacGuffin-ish. And I'm like, thank God there are like interesting characters outside of the Talamasca for me to latch onto on the show called Talamasca.
Ah, yes. A good old Danny Torkel opening statement where it's kind of like you take a big sack and dump it on the table, and there's like things all over the place. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna focus on this thing over here. Let's focus on Kevis. That's where I actually got interested in the show. When Kevis showed up, they had a little meet cute with her and Guy in the bar, and I'm like, oh, she's cute to look at. But then there was genuine chemistry between the two actors. You know, she does this really cute thing where she takes a picture with him with a Polaroid camera. She writes a number on it. It's kind of early 2000s kind of thing, and I dug it. I wanted to see more of her. I'm like, okay, cool. She's gonna be a new character, and then by the end of the episode, she's dead. You know, hanging, which was a shock. You know, that certainly I wasn't expecting that. But the show's kind of missing some kind of element that's gonna hook you in there. It's got a plot, you know, like there's some kind of thing going on where they want to get this 752. And honestly, Danny, I kind of need some clarification on what the fuck that is. I know they kind of explained it in episode
So
two.
it
Go ahead.
feels like it was as if in the year 752 AD, that like all of the research and literature that the Talamasca had saved up is burned down in this library, but at the same time is downloaded onto some type of like mythical storage, hard drive. And that's what,
Yeah.
so it's like a hard drive from 1350 years ago.
Right.
Um, yeah, listen, if it's one thing I know about this show, and if it's one thing I do, I try to drop my sack right on top of like the pulse of what's going on. Ha!
Oh man, you're stepping into my territory, buddy. But
I know.
all right, here's the thing. That in itself is compelling, right? Because you got fucking supernatural creatures, you got vampires who like can literally stop time. That's one thing I actually didn't like about the interview with the vampire show, and they did it in this show too. I get the whole idea of like you can kind of freeze people where they are, like Professor X does in the X-Men movies, right? Where it's like you kind of pause people's minds because you can control their minds. But then when you like literally stop time, like at one point, this one Talamasca guy who's working with Jasper is pouring a drink, and the drink itself freezes. And I was like, no, they're really going with that like they can like freeze time. I don't know if I like that. I was telling my daughter Pepper, who's a huge fan of the Interview with the Vampire books, and she loves the fucking show. Um, I was telling her about this like freezing time thing, and then my daughter Clementine overheard that, and she was like, "Wouldn't they just eat all the humans then?" And I'm like, "Yeah, they probably would. If you could fucking just freeze time, you know, easy, piece of cake, right? It's a
when
buffet."
you're when your kids who are in elementary school are like pointing out the plot holes in shows,
AMC
it
show, yeah. Yeah. Well, so I mean, okay, but
yeah.
here's the thing, right? So you got vampires, you have witches. We see that in episode 3. They're like, oh, there's witches, just like in Mayfair witches here too. I know there's spirits. It would make sense that like knowledge is the power that humans would have. Technology would be the benefit, the edge that we have, and knowledge, right? And versus these other creatures. I mean, obviously vampires would have extensive knowledge, but vampires in the Anne Rice books are so like by themselves and like cornered off. Like they don't have like a vampire community where they're all hanging out and like sending Snapchats to each other and stuff. You know, they're all doing their own thing. So it makes sense that they wouldn't have like a big library of their own. And I just think that like they maybe should go more into detail about the 752 and how it gives humans an advantage against these like supernatural forces. And like I'm not exactly sure how this all ties in with these like fucking zombie vampires that William Fichtner's making. I kind of want to hear your thoughts on that. But before we do that, I just want to also point out I don't think there's any fucking MacGuffins in any Anne Rice books that I've read. And this show has become a MacGuffin show about this 752. Go ahead.
No, I feel like whenever you do a spin-off of a successful show,
Right,
or a hit show, I feel like there's always the risk of like you want to establish something new. You don't want to rely too heavily on the show you're spinning off from, but at
right.
the same time, you want to draw the fans of that first show in. And the only way to really do that is to have elements of the original show that the crowd likes. And I feel like for me the biggest thing missing so far, and I want to preface by saying there are things that I like about this show.
Yeah,
And there are interesting characters, whether it's again uh Burton, who was played by uh Jason Schwartzman in the first episode, or William Fichtner's character, um,
right.
or Kevis, etc. There are these interesting characters, but I think the everything about Interview with the Vampire is so strong that I almost wish there was a little bit more crossover. Like
Yeah,
we got the Daniel Malloy tease
cameo.
in episode 1 with Eric Bogosian there.
Right.
And at Comic-Con, when I saw this at Comic-Con, the panel for this show, they had um Eric Bogosian was on stage with everybody, and like apparently he's gonna be back in the show a little bit later.
Yeah.
But like I feel like Armand, Louis, Lestat, like they should at some point do a pop in. Um, I, I, because I think it would strengthen the show. I think it would give the Talamasca more credibility if like they were able to say to Guy, like if Helen, played by Elizabeth McGovern, was able to say to Guy, like, listen, don't trust Jasper. Jasper, like, you can't trust Jasper, and I'll give you uh somebody to back me up on that. And then like she sends him to Armand, and he has like a 5-minute meeting with Armand, and we get to go like, oh my god, Armand's in the episode, that's awesome. And Armand is like, oh, I had this encounter with Jasper. And even if it's done as a flashback, if it's done in the style of Interview with a Vampire, I feel like I'd be like, oh, this is awesome. Like this is what I wanted, something like that. Where it's like
Yeah.
now the Talamasca is like showing what they know, and they're so far advanced, and they have so much knowledge of who these characters are that they're able to like plan for them. And instead, it's just kind of like, they hire Guy, and Guy, by the middle of episode 3, is already ready to like quit and run off with the vampire. And I'm like, oh, that doesn't really sell me on the Talamasca as an organization. As far as those zombie vampires, they did show a scene at Comic-Con
Okay.
where Guy is like in that like underground tunnel area that Jasper has, and he's like clicking away, and those zombies are like chasing but then stopping, chasing and stuff. And that looks like a really cool set of characters. That looks
Okay.
like a really cool uh like a vampire who's so strong that he can like control other vampires like they're like wild dogs. Uh and again, that's something I'm looking forward to. Um I want the Talamasca to be a better overall character in its own
Yeah.
show.
Okay. Well, as a guy that's read the books and stuff, right? There's a few problems that we're facing, which I think they could like capitalize on. They could actually turn this into a strength for the show, right? Because you mentioned Lestat, you mentioned Armand, right? All these vampire characters are like so over the top, so larger than life, right? They're so epic. And what's really cool when you read the first 3 books is that you meet them, you get so drawn in by them, and they give you a little bit of information on what it is to be a vampire. And it's usually their take on what it is to be a vampire. This is Armand's take. This is Lestat's take, right? And with this show, what you could do instead is kind of do the human take on vampires, like what we know about them. Oh, well, it spreads because it's like a virus and it does this. And then this is what happens to a person after this much time, right? We're starting to get little glimpses of that in this show. Like we have the guy who is working for the Talamasca, but he's been like kind of turned by Jasper. He's got cancer, right? And I actually kind of like this angle too.
Yeah.
Um, he's like using Jasper's blood to heal his cancer, I guess, and it's sort of like a like slow process. He hasn't like turned him fully into a vampire where cancer wouldn't matter, but like he's like just giving him enough so that he can like I guess keep the cancer at bay. And it's funny because I don't know if you watch this on like the AMC app or if you just watch it on TV, but like on the AMC app, it has like behind the scenes stuff every time you watch an episode. It's funny because I think they're trying to like play up the homosexuality in the app versus on the actual show itself. Because there's always a line of what's that?
No, that's interesting because that is such a prevalent thing, obviously, in the Interview with the Vampire series. And
Yeah,
so far, there hasn't been any of that. In fact, it feels I just DVR it off of AMC. I have DirecTV now,
right,
and so I just DVR the episodes off of AMC, not AMC Plus. So all I see is the episode, and then like the coming up next week on,
right.
and um, it is interesting that this show does feel uh very heterosexual. uh Obviously you have Guy uh going out with Kevis, and that whole thing. You have there's like the hint of almost like a threesome with his
Handler.
the handler. Yeah, I guess there was a little homosexuality between the two women there at the bar.
Yeah,
But yeah, like none of the vampires, Jasper hasn't been like overly forward towards Guy in any way.
right.
um yeah. I mean, so
But
yeah,
see, like
go
that's what
back to what you were
happens.
saying. Yeah.
That's what happens on the behind the scenes stuff. Is that like William Fichtner be like, I don't know if he's infatuated with me or not. But like he kind of drops hints like William Fichtner, not Jasper. And so I know that like that's a big thing in the show. It's a big thing in the books. It was a big thing when the Tom Cruise and Brad Pitt movie came out. The homosexual nature of the vampires. That was what was so different about it, right? And like Pepper asked me at one point, do you think that Interview with the Vampire is going to become like this big, big hit that everybody knows about? And it's interesting because I think in the modern day that we live in, like a homosexual vampire show could be a very big hit, but I'm not sure the way our country is and stuff. It might just be like it's sort of got its cult following, and but that's what the show is kind of missing. Like I'd hate to say this is going to make me sound like a big perv, but like when the show actually was interesting to me, it was during the most sexual moments. It's in the club with Kevis and Guy, and then all of a sudden his handler comes in. I thought his handler was a vampire by the way she was moving and the way she was acting, almost like hypnotizing them.
Yeah.
I'm guessing she's just a regular person, but maybe she's a witch. I don't know. And then there was a little bit of homosexuality with like the guy from the Talamasca, like opening up his shirt and like he had to like dab the blood on there. Like I know that they basically needed like some kind of visual way to show like, oh, he's using the blood for his cancer. He could have just like drank it, like out of a glass or something, but they had to like show him like treating himself. Um, but and then also when Guy went home with Kevis and they had sex too, I was like, oh, okay, I'm into this show now. But just like it's that, and then scenes of people just saying exposition to each other. And I'm like, okay, the exposition is interesting, but that's not what fucking gets you with Anne Rice, man. What gets you with Anne Rice is the emotion. It's all the emotion, like Lestat's emotions. You want characters saying how they feel and like just overcome with emotions, not like, well, we started this program at this point, and like, who gives a fuck? We don't care. Like, we want vampire romantic drama, and
I don't think
like,
I don't think that makes us pervy for wanting that. I feel like we are an audience that's been trained by multiple seasons of Interview with a Vampire that this is what to expect from this show, and this is why we love that show. Like, um I think I'll give you an example that has nothing to do with this. I was watching, do you remember the movie Hand That Rocks the Cradle from like the early 90s?
how could I forget, man?
So they made a remake of it,
Oh,
and it's on Hulu now, and it stars Mary Elizabeth Winstead as the wife and mom, and Micah Monroe is the nanny who comes, she's the hand that rocks the cradle. And that movie, it took me like 2 days to finish watching it, and it's only about an hour and a half.
yeah.
And they tease a lot of sexuality in that movie. They tease it, and they don't deliver any.
Oh,
And again, I'm not sitting there like, ready to go. But if
oh man.
you're, but as also, if I'm watching a movie where a female character and another female character have obvious, like they're hinting at obvious sexual chemistry between them, and later in the movie she's like, I'm gonna fuck your husband, and it's like, okay, you never like had a scene alone with the husband one time in the movie.
Yeah.
And the movie ended, and I just sat there like, why did I just waste my time with this? Like,
Yes.
there's a great documentary that is, it might be on Shutter right now, and it's about like the lost art of the erotic thriller.
Oh yes, I know. You've talked about that before.
Yeah, it's on, it's all about like that late 90s, early 2000s, um uh you know direct to video erotic thrillers. And it really, and I feel like, when we're watching Interview with the Vampire, there's a lot of like erotic thriller in there.
Yes. Yes.
And I think that it is, I'm actually looking for it and I can't find it. It was on Shutter. I'm upset. Now I can't remember the name of that documentary, but it was really great. But I feel like this show, like that new Hand That Rocks the Cradle movie, like Interview with a Vampire actually paid off on that. Like, you're not a pervert if you're watching an erotic thriller and you see sex. It's like, yeah, that's part of why you're watching it. It's, if I'm watching Euphoria, um, and, you know, there's sex in the episode, I'm not like, or, I expect it. That's part of what I'm
Uh,
watching the show for.
right.
And, you know, and the problem is, with the exception of that like 1 2.5 minute scene in the club in episode 2, this is one of the least sexiest shows I've ever watched.
Exactly. Exactly. Thank you. Thank you. I get your point you're making, man, because it's like that was Anne Rice's style. She literally wrote erotica, first of all,
Yes.
erotica books, but she would write like erotic thriller horror books. And believe me, I speak to a lot of people, men and women, that read horror books, and a lot of times there's a lot of crossover where they like smutty books and stuff. And you're right, this show is very kind of bland except for a few standout moments, and who cares, right? Like, so what if this was this spin-off? I mean, yes, it kind of deviates from the creator, the Anne Rice's immortal universe. It deviates from Anne Rice's style. Anne Rice herself deviated from her style. She became very Christian at one point, and like didn't write erotic stuff, but what she's known for is this kind of stuff. Now, this show could deviate from it because it's a spinoff, but then go in a direction that's equally as compelling. We sound like two very horny dudes talking about the hand rocks the cradle and erotic thrillers and stuff, but then like just do something else. It's a fucking horror like show, right? It's based on horror books. Like go in the horror direction, like make it scary, like do something. That when you watch the behind the scenes stuff where they're talking about this show, they keep talking about how it's like a spy thriller set in a supernatural world. Amp up the spy thriller stuff. Like I get
Yeah.
the whole like a lot of the like realistic spy stuff is like sitting around waiting for someone to like make a drop or like hit a signal. That's intriguing. But it's too much of a stretch between the two worlds of this like over the top personality, romantic, erotic thriller, fantasy, vampire world, and then like mundane spy thriller stuff. It's too much. You have to like bring them closer together, And I think that that's the problem with these first 3 episodes. I don't know. I mean, there's only 6 episodes total. I don't know if it's going to make a big shift now that Jasper and Guy are working together. But I got to say that, like, out of all the fucking things that you and I could talk about, because we could talk about Badlands, right? We could talk about it, Welcome to Derry, which we're about to record after this. We could talk about Frankenstein by Guillermo del Toro. For this one, I'm like, oh, we got to talk about Talamasca. Okay, cool. Let's do it. You
Yeah,
know?
it's one of those weird things where I like the show. It flies by. I watch it on DVR, so I have the remote in my hand. As soon as it goes to commercial, I'm fast forwarding. So it ends up being like a fast 40 plus minutes. And then I'm like, yeah, that was a good episode of television. That was fine. And then like the idea of recording where I'm like, oh, now I have to talk about this episode, and I don't really have that much to say
Nope.
because not much has actually happened. And it's weird that episode 4 just dropped yesterday as of us recording this. Next week we're going to probably do episodes 4 and 5.
Right.
So like we're halfway through this show, and I'm
Yeah.
thinking like Interview the Vampire season 3, The Vampire Lestat, is coming early next year. So I'm really hoping that this does something to set that up, because otherwise, what's the point? Like these characters kind of have to be in that show, or else I don't see what the point of this 6 episode little experiment was.
Yeah.
Like I don't know, you and Brian do comic books transform. Did you guys watch
Agents of
Agents
S.H.I.E.L.D.?
of Shield? Yes. Yes. Did you watch Agents of Shield? Because this is what it feels like. I I watched maybe one episode of Agents of Shield and I was like, and then I stopped watching it.
Yeah, well, okay, so that's the fun thing about this, right? I actually hope that the show does an Agents of Shield, because when the show starts out, Agents of Shield, it's like, oh, it's in the Marvel universe, but we can't even fucking say Hulk. We say the big green guy. Like we have to be so far removed that like we can't be contradicted in the movies or anything like that. But then they're like, fuck it, let's just go deep into our own lore and use stuff that's from Marvel, but like not necessarily in the movies. And they once they started doing that, the show got really intriguing. I didn't watch the whole show, but I watched like I don't know 3 or 4 seasons, and I actually really did end up liking it. The first season was rough, but then it like got its own identity. I feel like that's what this show needs to do. You made a really important point there, Danny. You said this has to tie with the Vampire Lestat. The Talamasca is in the Vampire Lestat book, and then the Talamasca is definitely in Queen of the Damned, which is the book after the Vampire Lestat. And before in our recording, I was talking about how you get like pieces of the vampire, like their lore, like essentially like what they can do, how long they've been around. Eventually, you find out how the vampires were created in the first place. That happens in Queen of the Damned. And I have total faith in the Interview with the Vampire showrunners. I think they're gonna like do a really great job of showing us that eventually. But this show could do a great job of kind of showing the human perspective on all of this stuff. Like, how much do humans know about all this stuff? Like, to me, living in a world where this stuff exists, like, that's the whole thing, right? With like Guy, he's living in a world where there's fucking vampires all over the place, right? Like, you should play up that. You should play up that, like, that's fucking scary. Like you should at least have one scene where he's out at night, he sees some kind of guy, and he thinks it's a vampire, and he's scared, and it's just like a guy walking his dog or something. Like, you should have that kind of tension, that fear of like, oh my god, I live in this world that has these things. But it's so like plot oriented, where it's like, okay, well, he's, I don't know, trying to get people to go into this strip club as a cover to see this drop happen, right? And then like he goes like right up to a vampire, and that should be fucking scary as hell. And it kind of is. It's kind of scary when he freezes the guy because it shows how powerful he is. But it's not like that. Oh my god, I'm here with something that's ancient and kills people like every night. Like, this should be really scary, and it's not that kind of feel, you know.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. That's our response to the show is that's the Danny. Yeah, that's our response to this show. Well, do you have any more Talamasca beats to hit, or should we jump over to Derry?
I think we're good. We have 3 more episodes. I think, like you said, I think we have reason to be optimistic. I do have faith in the showrunners. It's pretty much like the same people who are doing the interview of the vampire. So I know that they do have like a love and devotion to Anne Rice and to her work.
Right.
And yeah, like I feel like when we talked about Yellow Jackets, it's kind of like, you know, not every episode in a season of television is going to be a quote banger episode, but like when you only have 6, you
Yeah.
really got to like swing for the fences, or maybe just keep your setup to the first episode and a half, and then like really get into, one of the things that Interview of the Vampire, and like we always talk about with the other show that we're covering, Welcome to Derry. So
Yeah.
far, um, there's been these huge horror set pieces in each episode,
Yeah.
and this show is also a show in the horror universe where it feels like there hasn't been a horror set piece. So there's not like the horror aspect of it. We're also not getting the sex and sexiness of the Anne Rice, the erotic thriller of the Anne Rice universe part of it. So it just kind of feels like we're just kind of trudging along with an occasional fun character, an occasional good scene, until we get back to Lestat in January when the Vampire Lestat comes out.
Yeah. And Danny, I'm really glad you brought up it. Welcome to Derry, because like in the most recent episode, the kids are like actively working with purpose. They're like, we have to get a picture to prove that this creature exists, so that we can get my dad out of jail. Right? They have a purpose. When I think about it, like the Talamasca in the books, they don't really have a purpose. They're not really like, let's find out as much as we can about vampires so we can like get rid of the vampires, or like we can make sure humans are safe. It's like they're really just there to like observe. And when your main characters are just the people watching, that's not really intriguing. You know what I'm saying? They have no agency. For a secret agent group, they don't really have agency. So I think
Yeah.
that might be the downfall of the show. I don't know. We'll see. But we've got 3 episodes left. So why don't you go ahead and plug what else we got going on our channel, and we can move on.
I mean, well, we already kind of said we're covering it. Welcome to Derry on HBO Max. We reviewed the first 2 episodes of that, and episode 3 we're about to record, so that'll be up on the channel very soon. We are going to be reviewing Predator Badlands later this week. I have a short review of that up on the channel. And I have a bunch of shorts. I did a review of Frankenstein. Um, I've been posting more like questions, almost like Pete on the street style questions. Yesterday I posted Dan under the kitchen fan, uh, and I posted a question from my kitchen. So yeah, we have a bunch of good stuff on the channel. We have a great interview with David Weiner from In Search of Darkness, 1995 to 1999, up on the channel. Yeah, you mentioned Frankenstein. I have a short review of that, which it's on Netflix now if you haven't watched it. So check that out. Really good.
Yes. Oh man. All right. Well, guys, thank you so much. Make sure that you subscribe to the channel because whether it's Pete on the street or Dan under the kitchen fan, we're always sitting there ready to go. All right. See y'all.